here minorly, but
this is Printed and Pressed, a podcast by the team, the Krillcast team, myself, and the other two gentlemen below. One of them is struggling with their camera.
Yeah.
He sucks. But
you know what?
Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, Andrew. You're on top.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Will.
And
Andrew just got.
Just deal with it. It is what it is. All right.
Screw it. We'll do it live. I didn't swear. I have 2 minutes.
2-minute counter.
You just always are on top of this. It drives me crazy. All right. So tonight, what are we talking about? It's a book chosen by William.
Yeah. All right. So we read the book The Seawolves, A History of the Vikings. It is a chronological story depicting the Viking conquest of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Great Britain, and also Russia, which I had no idea. And also their various exploits of just basically ransacking every coastline they could find.
They
North
dominated
America,
those polar bears in
Africa,
Russia.
Italy. I had no idea they made it to Rome. They're not Rome the city, but
To Rome.
Rome the country. Yeah. Very cool.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't know. There's so much in this book where I was like, what? They did this?
I guess
what?
Sadly enough, a lot of my Vikings knowledge before this book came from maybe 2 or 3 books. One of them was a fictional book.
Your ancestors? Chris was
No. Listen, can I finish?
Yeah.
All right. No, my bulk of my Viking knowledge came from like 2 or 3 books, one of which was called The Sea Trolls, which is why I kept calling this book The Sea Trolls. It was like a fictional book about like a young Viking going to war, and like it actually goes into how religiously they believed, dying in war was the best way to die, and blah 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 blah.
Going to Valhalla on the back of the Valkyries.
So the Sea Trolls, that was a book I read before this, and then Ken Follett actually did a book around the time the Vikings were invading the English territories, and that was a really big part of my knowledge of this too, because I had to look up a whole bunch of it to figure out what the heck he was talking about, because they're like the Normans, and I'm like, what the heck are the Normans? Oh, it's basically Vikings.
They are Vikings.
Yes. Oh, that's another thing. I didn't know there's a bunch of different types of Vikings. I'd also never watched the Viking TV shows, so maybe that's the knowledge gap there.
But I've never watched them either. Well,
okay, maybe just because my family's part Swedish, heavily Swedish. I mean, I was aware of the Rus Vikings, so.
Yeah. No, didn't know.
Yeah.
And there was another book, but I can't pick it out right now.
Sure, it's by C.S. Lewis. It's the only person you read.
I just named off 2 authors that are not C.S. Lewis. Thank you very much. What's that drink in that glass there, Will? You're getting some pretty good vodka going on there. Huh?
Yeah, it's Russian for water. That's what vodka means.
This is aqua. Anyways, no, I have seen the opening scene of Vikings. That's how I decided I didn't want to watch it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how far I got to.
Say they raid that monastery on a random island, or abbey, or whatever you want to call it, and kill all the monks. And I was like, nope.
That part wasn't I don't care about that. Like,
how does that upset you so much, Chris? It happened.
Okay, let's
historically accurate.
Do I want to watch a show where a bunch of completely defenseless monks on an island get wrecked by Vikings? No, thank you.
So you want to be ignorant of history?
I'm not ignorant. I read the book. I didn't need to see it though.
Oh, come on.
Anyway, long story short.
They're not defenseless. They could have said the word of God and defended themselves.
The power of Christ compels you.
Exactly. Be gone, demon.
Wait, we're Vikings, not vampires. That won't work on us.
Chris, I just find it funny, man.
All right, so why did we pick this book? Please explain.
Well, I picked this book because I found it fascinating because I didn't know much. Clearly, didn't know much about Viking history, and I know this is Chris's least favorite part of the book, but them constantly just fucking over the Christians. Am I 2 minutes in? 4 minutes in. I'm good. Yes. Was honestly obviously it's sad, but at the same time it's hilarious. Why did they keep thinking it was going to work?
I mean, the whole bribing people and saying, "Oh, if you get
it eventually did," but it was very strategic. The ones that worked, he was very good at explaining. This is why it worked. It was the particular.
Well, they gave them the advancements and the ideas of society that they didn't have, and they converted them to Christianity. Okay, so there was that.
The fascinating thing is that the Vikings
converted them, but on their baptismal days, they wouldn't slaughter the rest of the village. So.
That's not actually true.
Yeah, that happened a couple times.
No, they would basically go and just kill them all still.
Oh, okay.
It was funny because there were multiple that got bribed with Danegeld still, and it was they were found out to still be Christians already when they were told you had to be baptized. It's like, no, they're just Christian heathens. Like,
well, actually, the one I found the most interesting was I was not aware how much of an impact they had on Ireland.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one that blew my mind because I pretty much knew most of the rest of, like, I had a general idea of the rest of it. Anyways.
You mean when you learned that Ireland wasn't always a bunch of drunks?
Well, I mean, that's probably still
well,
true.
They trace the red hair to the Vikings too, right?
Right.
It's something that we think is so.
Well, that's the Scotland.
Irish.
That's the Scotland and the Ireland.
Yeah.
And actually, it's more Scotland than Ireland with the red hair. Everybody thinks Ireland's got the red hair, but I think it's
Scotland has the most. But
Scotland's also the Celts, right?
Yeah, I mean, so is Ireland, bro.
Not as much.
No, they're both. No, they're
Celtic.
They're both that. Okay.
They also have the Picts.
You missed the part in this book where they said how the Vikings effectively eliminated the ethnic competition of the.
No, there was still Irish just like ancestors in Ireland. Remember, there's the king that was still there. That
Chris,
they may have intermingled, but
Chris, the Celts came from Ireland to Scotland.
Oh, okay.
And the Picts were effectively eliminated.
Gotcha. Okay, you're saying
by the Vikings.
The Irish and the Vikings eliminated the Scottish together.
Basically, yes.
It was a tag team.
Yes, and the Celts are the group that was left over at the end of it all. So modern Scotland derives from the Celts, just like everything else, just like Ireland derives from the Celts.
Okay.
And then the Anglo-Saxons down where it was the singular
the Anglo-Saxons
kingdom,
pretty much mixed with the Vikings.
They all did. That's the thing. Like, if you go to the United Kingdom,
like the Anglo-Saxons still
there's
exist.
not a purebred Anglo or Celt in that entire
probably
nation.
not.
Okay,
well, it can't be. They've been conquered so many times.
They've been conquered, reconquered, retaken territory. Yeah, I mean,
no. What I'm saying though is there's not a single one there without Danish or Norwegian or Swedish blood on some level. There's Viking heritage in like every single person over there.
All right, so how do we want to start this book?
I mean, we should do a rundown of the history.
Should we go to the chapter by chapter?
Yeah, maybe. This is so much in here. This is very hard to do.
I think sections. The sections.
Sure, the Raiders and the Explorers and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think my favorite, because I don't really like the history of the Vikings, but my favorite like leader of the Vikings is probably the Ragnar, because he was the most interesting.
He's also the one in the show, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember if he's on the show.
He's the main character of the show. He's the main
I recognized the name when I first read it, so I was like,
okay, if we're completely honest, though, he is less important as an individual
than his legend is.
More so.
His legend is important because it brings, like, it's the rally cry of the Vikings at that time.
Well, okay, his legend is more important because of everyone who claims lineage to him. So it's
like myself included, apparently. Sure,
Chris.
Hey, I'm not the one that wanted that. I just happened to be that way.
Sure. For everyone out there, Chris is playing astrology for old guys. So
for the elderly.
For the elderly. He's looking up ancestry.com. Yeah. So
not true. I haven't used ancestry.com even a little bit.
Okay, alternatives. I decided
much cheaper alternatives.
I decided to list the thing that the average viewer will understand.
Yes. All right, go ahead.
With the Raiders, I mean, it's the perfect storm, right? They find a England and an Ireland that has just had the influences of Rome, kind of civilize them and bring them, uplift them to where they're prospering. Them. Yeah, I mean, teach them about different technologies and ways to develop wealth, right? And because they're on that island, there's not a lot of conflict from external forces. So the second someone shows up with boats, it's just a bad day. And it's kind of interesting how peaceful they sounded like they kind of were prior to
they were before they discovered the gold they could steal.
No. I'm not talking about the Vikings. I'm talking about the British Isles.
Oh,
not really though. I mean, they gave the Romans a super hard time. The Roman never fully.
No. Christian British Isles is relatively
Okay.
peaceful among themselves, which is why the Vikings show up to a relatively undefended location. They're not fighting each other. They're more focused.
Yeah, well,
on
they're basically seeing
pilgrimage.
a shadow of their past, and they weren't ready for it.
Exactly.
Right. The real question is, like, how long were the Viking settlements there before they started, attacking? I imagine they were there a long time.
What do you mean the Vikings? You're talking about in where?
Well, I mean, think about it this way, right? The Vikings had to come from somewhere. So before they got their boats and started attacking the British Isles.
No, they were always in the Scandies, man.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder what life was like over there before they built boats and started trying to attack.
Well, okay, let's just look at the Vikings and their physiology. Okay, like
they're strong
massive.
people.
They're massive, strong people, right? Which the book is kind of funny in this book because it really describes what their actual height was at the time. They
towered over everybody, didn't they?
No, but 5'8" was like their average height at the time,
which is still tall for today.
Well, 5'8".
The average height is below that.
No, the average height I thought was 5'8".
I think it's 5'6". Let me look it up.
You gotta look it up. But at the time,
for women it's like 5'4".
At the time, they were all the average height of today, which is impressive given malnourishment.
5'9" for a U.S.
Yeah.
Really? Well, average male height worldwide would be a better one to look at.
Well, yeah, no, it's much.
Oh, it is still 5'9". You're right. Wow. And women is 5'4". I was right about women. 5'4".
But for them back then, being 5'8", 5'9",
actually, the average in the world is 5'11" for men.
5'11"?
They're catching up to me. Yeah.
There's no way.
Average male height in the world in 2023 is 5 feet 11 inches, according to the World Health Organization.
I severely doubt that statistic from that organization, but that's okay.
But like for that height, their height and everything, okay, they're fighting all the time over limited resources in Scandinavia.
And so they decide, hey, let's not fight each other. Let's go raid all these rich people below us.
Well, they had to develop boats. So they developed boats.
They probably started out with fishing boats before raiding parties.
Yeah, I mean, that's like probably 1,000 years before we're talking about this, Chris.
I would be more interested in
technology because when they are launching onto these islands, they already have much of the technology.
Ancient Scandinavia was probably kind of boring.
Lots of inter-tribal fighting like Britannia was.
Yeah, but with less resources.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, the thing people don't realize is that iron is actually kind of limited in Scandinavia.
Well, yeah, probably. Probably more wood weapons than...
It's a precious resource. So if there is a
You wouldn't know that by looking at ancient Viking settlements, though. Because they stole it from everybody else.
Did you know that they've only found one helmet? They actually don't know what the helmets look like.
Well, yeah, because they stole everybody else's helmets.
No. They've only found one Viking helmet. I just recently learned this. So you know how we always have pictures, like even on this book, it's this helm.
Yeah.
You see like the horns and shit. I mean, they don't actually have that.
They would take from everyone. Like that's the big thing with Vikings is they were very adaptable, and I don't think people recognize that. So throughout this book with these raiders and everything, they're very flexible in combat. They're always looking for the advantage they could have. Being mobile was their biggest strength. Being big and mobile was their biggest strength, actually.
Well, yeah, because if they could catch you off guard, they'd probably have to.
They didn't get locked into one fighting style for 100 years or something like that.
And they also did not. They also did not play the whole. Let's line up all our men side by side.
Well, they were always creative, right? They were the most creative on the battlefield. They would find any way to get into your city.
They're also, as far as I know, one of the first groups that experimented with drugs going into battle.
Yeah, mushrooms.
Well, it took caffeine, which is funny to think about now, but at the time it would make them go nuts because they had they weren't.
Well, yeah, caffeine was not there was no such thing as let's have coffee every day.
Yeah, well, we've all seen and heard of berserkers. That's what they would do. They would ground up coffee, they would eat it, and then they would literally go berserk because they're having a caffeine high.
Well, it's speaking of that, I thought it was really funny. I've been watching that Borgia Faith and Fear, and this is kind of similar.
I just find it funny.
They brought over tobacco from the New World, and he's like trying to convince somebody to go into business with him over tobacco, and he's like, "Here, try this." He takes a fucking, "You're trying to kill me," because he's like takes a puff and he's like, "You poisoned me," like walks out of the room. Like, oh my gosh. Little did he know tobacco was going to take off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the caffeine thing, that makes total sense. Yeah.
But everywhere that the Vikings settled, right, they kind of conformed to whatever the local establishment was.
Well, yeah, they would take on the skills, the ideas.
Yeah, whatever was useful to them.
Civilization.
So they didn't reject new ideas that were good. They just,
They would mimic anything that was effective.
Yes.
Right.
So the form of government in England, they adopted it.
They were very adaptable. Like as a civilization, whatever was more convenient for society and leadership, they always took it.
Well, it made them very effective conquerors, but it was impossible to have an actual Viking empire because of what they did. Because there's no congruency between
the Rus is the closest thing.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. And that was later, and they definitely turned Christian very quickly. So they gave.
But that was their adaptability thing, right?
Yeah.
The issue for the Rus was just that there wasn't enough of them, so they eventually just bred into the Slavs.
Choosing Christianity over the Vikings' beliefs was probably an easy choice, considering like, hey, I don't gotta die in war anymore to be saved.
No, it's not an easy choice, actually.
I feel like it would have been.
No.
It was easier than picking...
I did think
it was funny that
it couldn't have been that easy. They kept saying they have converted, and they just went back to the Christian villages and killed everybody.
It's not easy to convert to a religion that doesn't want you to go to war when your entire culture and prestige system is based on conquest and raiding. If you convert to Christianity as a jarl or a king in a Viking civilization, they're going to view you as weak.
Yes. They use vault, bro.
No, because that's not even a thing at the time.
I know, I'm joking. That would have been great, though.
It would have been very hard.
How great would it have been if
takes some legit courage, but also desire to change, bring uniformity to your culture, right? Because the whole reason a lot of them converted was they couldn't have that pantheon of 1,000 different gods that everyone was expecting you to bow down to in some capacity. It made it where it was impossible for a singular morality system.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
because some of them were under Thor, some of them were under, I forget what the other major one was.
But the thing is, too, they couldn't even, because they're pagan, right, and not monotheistic, they couldn't even say that the Baltic pagan gods were illegitimate, or the Slavic ones.
Or was it Poseidon? Was that the other one that they... What was the sea one?
Thor. You have Thor, you have Odin, you have Freya,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Loki. You got a bunch of different gods,
nobody wants to put themselves under Loki.
Yes, they do. Loki's
they don't.
All the time, bro.
You're basing this off the Marvel character, man. He's really
I'm basing this off of the book where all of them picked Odin or Thor.
No, because this book is geared towards warriors.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, women loved Freya.
Yes.
I'm sure they did.
Well, here's something real quick, just because I don't know how to intercede this. But, okay. The being hard to convert from Christianity, or to Christianity. Something I found really interesting when I was going over the Norse mythology is, so everyone knows that Christ gets crucified on the cross, and you can view that as, God sacrificing himself to God. Okay, that's sort of an interpretation of that scene. Well, in Norse mythology, Odin actually sacrifices himself to himself on a tree to gain more knowledge, and it is so funny to me that there's a parallel story like that in two very disparate.
I think the real question is which story was first.
Sacrifice is.
You don't want to ask that question, Chris.
Here's the thing. Like a lot of mythological and different things. Like, for example, let me just backtrack here since I'm here. for example, a lot of the plagues in Exodus are associated specifically with the Egyptian gods on purpose to show that the God of the Hebrews was better than the God of the Egyptians.
They're also in Egypt at the
For
time.
example, but in order to bridge the gap between like getting pagans to convert, it could also be that, you know, some of the things that happen in the New Testament or in the Old Testament, pick your pick, were parallels to things that were in their mythologies to make it easier for them to convert. Maybe that was the thought process there. So it's not necessarily one happened before the other on purpose, or like one copied the other or mimicked the other. It could be that, you know, that was specifically the act was chosen to resonate with the most amount of people.
Or you could also just say that the concept of sacrifice in a morality system
has always existed.
One of the most important things for someone to be willing to do as like the greatest virtue. Yeah. So I think if you're talking about deities and what you're supposed to embody and emulate, being willing to sacrifice yourself for something greater than yourself, like knowledge or the community, your family, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
That is the greatest virtue one could put in myth. So
and that is something that, from what I understand, it's only something within the bounds of man. Like you won't see an animal society build up where like a whole bunch of animals lay down their lives for other animals in the same society. It just doesn't happen.
When you look, okay, let's just do a brief thing on human history here, right? Myth for things that men are supposed to emulate always involves sacrificing yourself for the greater good in some aspect, because men are supposed to defend women. That's one of the main reasons your tribe continues on. You can have one dude with the rest of the chicks in the tribe if you win the war, and you'll still survive. You can't let your village get raided and everyone taken away. You're not going to persevere.
That's true. Yeah.
It's
that was described also in like a history of war thing that I watched recently.
I mean, it's always said that when you find those tribal villages and stuff these days, and people ask them why they go to war with each other, it's always over women.
Yeah.
That's literally the only motivation for war, is to go get.
But also sometimes women can prevent war, so
that too, or they can just straight up cause it. Helen of Troy, let's go.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. But, I was just about to say that.
Right, so it's funny, the Helen of Troy story, so that causes Troy to fall. If that is really the reason for this, it was probably more of a trading route issue. But Rome actually is able to exist because the women protect Rome from the Sabines. So it's just interesting.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that before.
I'm sure I've brought it up before. It's one of my favorite things, but you could have also heard it somewhere else.
But if we get back to this, the Raiders section of this book.
Yes. So I thought the opening about Charlemagne saying like, "Oh my gosh, they've actually crossed the waters to Rome" was very telling, right? Because Charlemagne basically never thought they'd make it to shore in Rome. But then it goes into like the various leaders, because who knows, Vikings didn't really have leaders. They just had people that were strong that were like, let's go on a raiding party.
Yeah. They have very charismatic, influential individuals.
Yeah, they flew on dragons. One of their leaders was named Hiccup.
Let's just go through all the places they raided. So they made it all the way to Ireland, obviously, England, France, all the way down and up the rivers, right?
Yeah.
Except for Aethelred.
They made it to Spain.
I thought it was insane that one of the English kings actually held on to territory and kept the Vikings out and converted them to Christianity. But he did also bribe them, so there was that.
Money was, that's a different issue. We'll get to that one next.
Money was such an interesting thing with the Vikings.
I mean, so they made it all the way to Italy, Sicily. They made it all the way down to Constantinople. They made it all through Eastern Europe, basically. They went all the way to the Middle East with that's more of the trading routes for slaves and stuff, but
Yeah,
So
they sold so many
later.
Irish people into slavery in the Middle East. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I did not realize there was such an Irish slave
Also,
trade.
this is a long distance.
That is a long distance.
There's a blonde slaves were sold all over.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah,
all over the Middle East. They loved the blonde-haired Slavs or whatever.
Yeah,
other
well, they
group.
raided tons of that.
Yeah.
Arabic slave trade raided tons of those Eastern European countries.
I wonder if there's a good book on the history of like the slave trade. I'd be curious of what.
I mean, okay, let's be honest. The slave trade is a very convoluted mess. Where you think of the Barbary pirates, basically modern day Libya, that slave trade was going on all the way into the early days of America, and was our very first war.
True.
Us against the Barbary states is basically our first conflict as a nation, because they kept trying to take our ships, and it's one of those things where Thomas Jefferson and them actually printed Qurans so people would understand why we were in conflict with them, why they deemed us worthy of just being able to be taken as slaves and not equals, right? So that's one of those. I mean, the Ottoman Empire was taking slaves for a very long time. That's how they even conquered Constantinople. They had that slave army of young Christian boys that they took. So it's a very convoluted mess. Many countries still haven't outlawed slavery to this day. There's plenty out there. So if you look at the history of slavery, I don't think there's a single group out there who has not been enslaved at some point, except maybe the Vikings.
Well, I mean, I'm sure groups of Vikings have been enslaved. So
they probably enslaved each other.
Yeah.
No. I thought one of the things that I thought was really interesting, because I never really this was one of the things I never realized, which I'm a little surprised. Maybe I just forgot about it. Because I really watched the barbarian shows on the History Channel growing up. But the Visigoths came from Sweden.
Yeah.
Which means that one of the main invaders, right, of Southern Europe during that time period was Vikings, technically.
Yeah. Again, there's so much in this book that I did not realize.
It really brings into question what parts of Europe don't have a significant influence of Viking DNA. I don't think there is a single European country that does not have a significant contribution of that, which explains why Europe is so difficult to, like, if you ever do 23andMe or Ancestry.com, why they have this broadly northwestern European thing that's just, they can't tell you what it is.
They can't nail down the area that DNA comes from.
Yeah, because it's
so widespread.
Yeah, because it's probably Viking.
Yeah,
probably.
Just raping and pillaging.
Yeah, basically. That's probably what it is. So
weren't they also the first settlers in the New World?
Well,
they're the first ones to make it.
Do you mean like Europeans?
If you're saying Europeans, then yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, actually, wait, no, technically not.
Okay, but
technically not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's evidence of cavemen from Europe making it over there. Yes. So early Clovis and stuff. But as far as modern quotations era first explorers of it, yes.
And they didn't like it.
Well, no, they did like it. The problem is
they just like turned around. I don't understand.
No, they liked it. The problem is he got stuck at home because his father died.
Yes, that's crazy. It's like
he's just willing to abandon. He was willing to abandon going back to Vinland, because they found all those berries to make wine with, right? He's willing to give all that up for Greenland because his father died and he inherited running the colony of Greenland. It's just like, you know what? I would just say, let's move. Let's move the whole freaking colony to Canada because that's where they were, right? It's just like, how stupid can you be?
Well, imagine if they stayed and like they actually created like a real trade route to that colony, and then they started going south along the coast. How different life would be right now.
Right. I mean, let's be honest, Vikings would have thrived in North America.
Yes.
An actual colony of
there's
Vikings.
rumors that the Vikings made it to the west side of North America. Have you
I
heard
mean,
about that before?
there's plenty of rune stones that make it where some of them made it to
California,
Minnesota,
supposedly.
even.
Yeah, or at the very least, they traded with.
No,
the
there's rune stones for land like that were land claims in Minnesota that people have found. So there is evidence.
There was rumors of a Viking ship, and there's even like a recording of somebody saying it was in their farm property at one point.
There's one of the Native American tribes in Canada literally has a flag that is the inverse of one of the Viking flags. Like their tribal flag is the exact inverse. So what they had in the California, there was like a basin area in California. It was like way up in a bay in I'd have to look it up again. But there's people who claim that Vikings made it to China, Chris.
I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised actually at this point. The amount of conquering and pillaging they did.
Yeah, I mean, they could have gone anywhere. There's legends about Vikings making it to South America.
Yes.
There's a whole legend about a king.
Did the Silk Road exist at this time?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm sure they made it to China then.
Yeah.
Follow the trade posts.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, they've found mummies of Vikings, like tall ginger people in China. So there's plenty of evidence to say that the Vikings have gone all over. But the more controversial ones are the ones where it's like, oh, there's legends of this king.
Clearly, the Vikings were just
South
the
America.
continuation of Genghis Khan and his men.
No,
I'm joking.
No, well, what did that? You know that book that I think you guys read it as well. It was Fingerprints of the Gods.
I haven't read.
I have not read it. No, I've watched a lot of his programming.
You definitely should read it. So there's all these legends about these tall white people that came and like talked to the native people in South America, and like, who the hell are these people? It's the Vikings.
It has to be, yeah, has to be.
Probably, with the big beards.
They did. The way that they're described is like just like the stereotypical European, which is a Viking.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at stereotypical modern European would be the height of a Viking.
Yes.
I don't know. I still have some thoughts about ancient North America containing some serious civilization before the floods that occurred in North America.
I mean, I think
they had people before the glacial floods, if that's what you're saying.
Chris, if you're okay.
The giant ice shelf that was there for a long time.
Chris, in Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, you're
telling me about the copper mines.
No, not well. Yes, the copper mines, but so they believe that helped fuel the Bronze Age for one. But more important than that, farmers in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan literally found a Minoan script tablet before anyone knew what the hell Minoan script was. Okay, so it's not fake, it's not counterfeit or anything like that. There's literal evidence that the Minoans, all the way from Crete, a Greek island, made it to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah, or at the very least, there was a trade route, which is just as fascinating.
Or there was a trade route that brought copper between the two. Because what's the only reason you would be in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for? It's the fact that it has the purest copper in the entire world. Okay, so there's clearly evidence to support the Bronze Age theories, and that the Minoans had some relationship with North America. So Vikings, that's a lot less far-fetched. Significantly less far-fetched, since we know they made it to North America.
In more than one case.
And they were playing around in Greenland. And then, but let's talk about the really stupid sibling of Leif Erikson, okay? His sister...
Ranch? Did you say ranch?
I said branch.
What?
Sorry, go on, Andrew.
The sister brought her idiot husband and cousins over there to Vinland, and then they just kill each other because they want to fight over who's going to lead, and then they don't have enough colonists to self-sustain it, and they have to leave.
Don't they die out, or they left?
They have to leave in shame, okay? Like, just talk about how retarded you have to be, okay? Like, The dumbest people on the planet is his relatives. He was over there and he found all these berries, making tons of wine. His sibling goes over there, can't do crap. Just embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Oh, I also thought it was interesting how many times the Vikings came back to Northumbria. Like, they went back there so many times.
Why wouldn't you? Northumbria is weak. It's always been weak. It's the intersection between Scotland and England. It's the prime location to invade.
Mm-hmm.
It has no friends on any side.
But apparently they killed Ragnar, or wasn't it Ragnar?
Yeah.
They killed, and that was why they're like, we're going to kill these people.
With the help of Mercia.
Right.
They didn't do it on their own.
Still.
Which, I mean... Okay, did you guys find it... What did you guys find fascinating about the Vikings? Their culture.
Their names.
The names.
Like... No, one of my favorite parts in the book is when they're talking about Eric Bloodaxe and how he was in charge of York, but nobody liked the idea of somebody with the name Bloodaxe and being in charge of
He got
York.
the name for a reason, right?
Because he betrayed his siblings to take over.
I found it interesting how the author was talking about their hygiene and gender laws and civility in general. Just that the Vikings actually had a pretty high standard there.
They also treated women as leaders in some cases.
I mean, the gender laws, as you will see if you go to Scandinavia today, men and women are pretty damn equal.
Yeah.
In the law, and that allows them to pursue gender differences more pronounced than a lot of other countries. But it's just you're free to do whatever you want. Right? There's no pressure to be something. So.
Yeah, but they did not care about women from other cultures. They
were
brutal to them.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I also thought...
Hey, man, it was Viking superiority.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as the Spartans. The Spartans are the same thing.
Yeah.
The other one that kind of cracked me up was Ivar the Boneless. And he just I think it's less likely that a Viking leader had weak bones or was handicapped in any way. And let me finish. I'm not done yet. And he goes, it's more than likely he was double jointed.
Yeah.
But I just had to laugh. He's like, the idea that a handicapped Viking was leading the charge.
He's
probably
also
not.
Massive.
Right.
According to the reports, he was just a huge person, right? So.
Or I wonder why the guy is Citric One-Eyed got his name.
When you look at even modern Scandinavian culture too, though, it's the whole thing about punishments for breaking rules, vows, civility, like hospitality type things being so harsh. It makes a lot of sense why modern Scandinavia has such a high civilization score in my book, right? They're very much not abusing the systems they've established. So
and then the Herald Bluetooth, which I found out is the way they got that name from.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Bluetooth.
I always thought that was such a weird name. Like, oh, the king. Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, but the names, that was the thing that got me the most, was the names. It's just like Charles the Fat.
the bald one.
Charles the Bald.
I mean, okay, let's be honest.
Gorm the Old.
Charlemagne had terrible descendants.
Yeah,
they were weak. The Vikings exploited the crap out of the fact that they were weak. They were all more preoccupied with fighting each other than defending their countries. So,
well, how about the founding of Dublin? Like, I didn't realize that was a Viking settlement.
Yeah, there's a lot of places that are Viking established.
There was Dublin.
So.
There was another one besides Dublin.
I mean, London is basically Viking too.
Not Constantinople, obviously.
Cork. I'm pretty sure Cork was
Frisia.
Viking.
Oh yeah, Cork. You are correct on that one.
Greenland, Lindisfarne, or maybe not Lindisfarne. Ionia. Nope, that's not either. Which one am I thinking of now? York. No, York. The major buildup of York came from the Vikings.
They put it
the
right
Shetlands.
back on the river, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It is kind of crazy how many. Well, the Viking name for Constantinople was Miklagard. Oh, the other thing that was funny to me was that the Vikings who went up to Greenland assumed that was like the final resting place or like part of the what was it? Midgard. Yeah, or the end of the world or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like imagine like being the first people landing there and like, oh my gosh, this resembles our apocalyptic literature.
Well, they have volcanoes and stuff there. That was the gates of hell.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy to me. But and then the fact that Jarls are what they call the Viking nobles. I actually didn't know that. I feel kind of
it's
dumb.
Jarl, but yeah.
Jarl, yeah.
I like to say Jarl. I like that better.
No, I mean.
You can
the
say
Jays,
that,
man. The Jays are different.
Oh, the Raven Banner. I forgot how important the Raven Banner was for their military too. That was an interesting thing because if you see the Raven Banner come out, you know, like, oh god, we're screwed.
I mean, and it had a pretty good history of succeeding. So you're just like, bye, I'm leaving today. I mean, I think one of the biggest things too is just how they valued courage and despised weakness. I think when you look at it. Everyone failed because they showed weakness. Mm-hmm. That's why they were rated consistently. If you bribed them, you were weak.
Yeah.
Inherently weak. So all these people just kept bribing them nonstop to not, like, just please leave. And that's basically surrendering, right? You're just, you're encouraging
them
to
that you're
come
too
back.
weak to defend yourself.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay.
Gold bribes were only going to work for so long.
No, it wouldn't work for any long at all.
No, they worked for short periods of time.
Okay, no, tell me, Chris, how it worked at all.
I mean, it didn't. It just flat
explain. Explain.
You're not wrong.
Explain to me how. Okay, all you're doing is expediting the process of being rated. You're doing the rating for them. That's all a bribe is, right? You're like, okay, please don't just burn down our city and take the gold. Here, we'll just give you the gold. So end result is the same thing. You just got to keep some stuff, not destroyed at the end of the day.
I like how this says double click to enlarge the maps, but I do that and nothing happens. Like nice software, Kindle. Anyways, I wanted to pull up some of these.
Yeah, look at this map. That like just where they all went.
Yeah, it's crazy. Pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything from the perspective of like what we were covering about the book? Because the book itself covers like the history of Viking and raiding in the United Kingdom area and other areas, from like a period of like 700 something to like 1200 something.
Well, when you look at what this book covers, I think it's very evident the impact Vikings had just on the future of England as a whole. They kind of made Ireland weak. Just they did. Ireland was thriving, then the Vikings came, kind of destroyed them a bit. Then you had England, where they weren't able to destroy England in the same way that they did Ireland. And
Ireland made a little buffer for England.
Yeah, and they basically created Wessex as the sole English power that people could rally behind. And Wessex really did a lot of good reforms. The origin of those reforms are kind of questionable. Like, but they made better money with the silver. Like compared to a lot of places that debase their currency, the Wessex coinage actually became more content of silver and everything. It became stronger money in a sense. They fortified. They made literacy a big thing among the officers. So the Viking influence really forced Wessex to civilize even further. And when Wessex did take over, they had that Danish population. And even in Scotland, you had that Viking population. So the modern imperial British Empire might not ever have existed without that, because the Vikings brought the shipbuilding and seafaring like spirit to Britannia.
In reality, like, it was adapt or die. Like, English culture was going to adapt or it was going to die.
But when you think about it, the Vikings adapting and perfectly assimilating into Britannia as a concept too was massive for the future of England, because the British had literally no reason to leave the island without that Viking influence bringing shipbuilding. Like the future of shipbuilding and the Navy that England eventually did develop might not have happened in the same way.
They were tired of getting invaded all the time. So like, you know what? We're going to invade everybody else.
Right. So the way that they eventually, you know, the British Empire never had the sun set on it, right? That's probably because of the.
This is only sort of related. Is this the book that talks about how the Roman governors who always were watching, was always stationed in Britain, would always leave and try to become the emperor?
I don't remember that being in this.
No, it's not brought in this.
Okay. Whatever reason, everyone who gets assigned to be governor of Britain, they put down the rebellions, they end up doing really well, decide that they should be emperor. They leave with their army, and then Britain just falls again.
Yeah, because they
sounds like a different book.
It's a different book, but they get sick of the rain. Will, that's the problem.
Yeah,
land of perpetual gray skies.
Yeah, that's what happened. The Vikings made it to Michigan. They're like, yeah, fuck this.
We'll take the copper and leave. See ya.
Yeah.
Also, though, the Vikings, just the way that they governed themselves, like the way they valued freedom of speech and action, just that probably led to the Magna Carta too. Just conceptually, that value of freedom. So everything that we probably inherited in the United States kind of stems from that Viking influence in England. It's a whole different way of viewing it.
You're probably not wrong about that, because I don't
downplay Rome though, because they'd already been conquered by Rome at this point.
Yeah, Rome and really Britain just spent their whole early.
It's just the intermingling of the Roman rape and then the Viking rape and the British women. It's like just this nice mixing pot.
Okay, cultural Darwinism.
Chris cultural Darwinism. All his heritage is like, you know how that happened, right?
Yeah.
You did not descend from this great Viking family. It's like, no, you were raped.
I'm aware, Will, that it did not happen peacefully.
Oh my gosh!
Probably in those monasteries that you're so upset about being raided.
Well, there's a reason why I don't want to watch the Vikings.
Dude, it's not that. I mean, okay, I'm still surprised that you get so upset by that. I'm just a little bit surprised. You know it happened.
So? It doesn't mean I gotta watch it.
Who cares? Did you
okay, but who's gonna force somebody to watch? Here, let me put some unpleasant program on for you.
No, I guess my question is, what's so bad about watching it? Like, what's so wrong about seeing the brutality and being like, dang, that was a terrible thing?
But I don't need to watch it. Like, I know what happened. Why would I watch that?
You see other brutality. I guess that's what Andrew's getting at. Like, you see other movies that have worse
I don't
stuff.
really watch a lot.
Okay, Chris.
I skip every torture scene in shows I've watched.
Okay,
every single
Chris.
one.
I guess it's one of those things where it's like, if you've never seen it, you're kind of, I don't know. I feel like you're hiding from it. It feels like you're hiding from it.
I have spent half my life not hiding from that kind of stuff, and now I'm like, you know what? I don't need to watch that anymore. I
don't think you can really appreciate the brutality unless you see a depiction of it.
Look, I definitely don't need to see the Pope's pear. I skipped that scene immediately. Don't need to see that one.
I mean, you don't see anything.
You know what was funny was after that scene, and I skipped it, gosh, there was a clip that came up on Instagram or YouTube.
This is the Borgia's Faith and Fear that he's referring to.
Let me finish what I'm saying though. Like, after I skipped that clip, literally Instagram decided to pull up a reel where a guy goes, "I'm here to help my constipated friends out," and it was like this device that goes, and I was like, "Nope, ain't watching that either." Nope.
So let's move on in this.
Yeah.
Just to recap, the Vikings were very successful in raiding basically everywhere in Western Europe. Everywhere. Mm-hmm. Even North Africa on the west side, too. So, and...
Oh, you know what we haven't covered yet? Those Russia.
Italy. Yes, that's where I was about to take it. And while the Danes and Norwegians were doing that, and also in the meantime exploring to find the Shetland Islands, Iceland, Greenland, North America, they didn't really discover anything else, right? So going east was the Swedish, and Novgorod was their main base of operations at the time over there. And they were the Rus Vikings that went there. Basically how you get Russia. So they formed that kingdom, and it thrived off of trade, raiding and trading, but raiding Eastern Europe and trading down in Baghdad and wherever else, eventually making trade with Constantinople, right? They failed multiple times to conquer Constantinople because, let's just be honest, those walls.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything with that. They're so impressed by Constantinople and the Byzantines in general that they eventually adopt Orthodox Christianity because they want to unify their kingdom a bit better.
Well, that wasn't the only reason.
No, I mean
when they were just that was one of my favorite parts in the book. Don't skip over it.
Okay, no, wait. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay,
we'll get to it.
Okay.
So the primary reason they're looking to adopt a new faith is because we touched on it earlier, and it's the fact that the pantheon of all these pagan gods is too much.
Yeah, it's impossible to structure a civilization around it.
Yeah, because someone's always in conflict, demanding that you respect their god over another god, and you can't make one greater than the others. Not really. And they tried multiple times with Thor.
Right.
They tried to make Thor a Jesus.
And they tried with Odin, too.
And Odin, yes. And they're never successful because, you got Baltic people with their pagan religions. You got the Slavs with theirs. You got all these different groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, they have to look elsewhere. And we get Olga, a patron, a saint. She gets sainthood, Chris, in the Orthodox Church.
Okay.
And she was a mother so when her husband dies, the king, he dies prematurely, he was a strong leader for the Rus Vikings there. And he dies. How did he die again? He kind of gets.
I don't remember.
It's kind of a bullcrap way to die. I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit treacherous. Oh, he gets killed because he went there and demanded more gold from someone who owed him tribute. He overreaches a little bit because he's like, "Oh, just giving me the regular tribute after refusing to pay wasn't enough. You owe me more." But for some reason, he went back without proper bodyguards and just gets killed. And Olga's like, "Okay, everyone's offering me marriage, even the guy who literally just killed my husband." So Olga actually pretends to go along with these marriage proposals, takes all the diplomats that they are willing to send to her to try to convince her. She kills them. Asks for more diplomats to come.
Olga's the best.
He sends more people because she's asking for a more prestigious retinue to help escort her to his kingdom. She kills the rest of those people and then marches on his city and pretends like she's so in love with him that she runs ahead, goes there. They kill more people. Then they leave. They light the entire city on fire because they asked for birds, which they then attach burning fabrics to and release so the birds fly back into the city. And she burns the entire city with all the inhabitants to the ground. And she became Orthodox Christian right after that. As a way to try.
Technically, at the time that she converted, it was there wasn't the split yet. I mean, it was kind of coming, but it wasn't there yet when she converted. So it was all Catholic at the time. Okay, well, they were influenced by the Hagia Sophia. She was on the Eastern Catholic side, but yes. Okay, Eastern Catholic, they're still different, Chris. They operated differently. I won't take that away from you. But technically, it
whole
was
different
one
style
unified
point.
church at the time.
I know it's a unified church, but there's a different style points. Okay.
I was trying to picture why this happened in history, and why she wouldn't be a saint in both churches. Well, it's because she was before all of her deeds happened before the split, and she was canonized after the split by just the Eastern Orthodox Church.
Yeah, and she's canonized because she basically teaches her children to become Christian.
Right. Yep.
Well, not necessarily her children, but definitely her grandchildren are influenced. So eventually, they're still looking to try to unify, because she wasn't very successful at converting the entire country, right?
No, she was
and
not.
Her son was not necessarily the most eager to become it. But eventually they convert, and he's trying to choose between three main monotheistic religions. And Christianity is what he chose. Because he wanted to still eat pork, he wanted to still drink alcohol.
And he didn't want to be circumcised.
That
was my favorite part. He's like, well, 2 out of the 3 religions I could pick require circumcision at the time. And he was
but it was also pork and alcohol, Chris.
Yeah. No, I understand.
He's just like, that's 3 strikes for 2 of them. 3 strikes. Let's just, no. So they became Eastern Catholic, Orthodox Christian, whatever you want to say.
Apparently it was Chalcedonian Christian, which is different.
Okay. So
I'm going to send you a little link of actually interesting splits of Christianity.
There is a lot of splits, but the idea that there wasn't there was lots of traditional practices in different areas. Like, it wasn't as unified, but it was unified because the schism hadn't happened yet. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not saying traditions in different areas.
It's a different style altogether, but it's unified in doctrine overall.
Right, at the time. So
but she also, an important contribution of Olga in the aftermath of how her husband died, she instituted for the first time ever, the modern form of taxation. Where, I don't know if you guys remember that, but she instituted more of a, less of a taking from the jarls or local leaders out of their profits, and put the taxes on everybody. So the local leaders would collect the taxes for her. So she kind of did this thing where she was the villain instead of the local leaders being her being a villain to the local leaders. She was just the villain to everybody instead. And that allowed her to not have the same conflict with the local leadership. So that was a really interesting contribution of Olga.
Yeah, I wonder if she had a beard.
He's a saint, man.
A lot of the Russian royalty for a long time.
No, she was Rus. She's still Rus.
Okay, fine.
I wonder what in the world this below the line thing is. The thing you sent me, Will. This is an interest. I'm gonna, there's a book that I've recently discovered that we might have to add to this podcast just to have this discussion, illicit discussion about the schisms and stuff, because that would be an interesting conversation.
Well, every time they had a council, they had another schism, which is something that is always glossed over.
But the broad church, the general church, was accepting of it, and they basically said, "Nope, you're a heresy if you don't accept this council."
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's great for the people who accept the council.
Yeah,
for everybody else.
Well, the schism occurs, the schism occurs proper at 1054, and that was because of the addition to something in the Nicene Creed. So basically, the Orthodox Christians decided you can't add to the Nicene Creed, which, I mean, actually one of the main reasons.
Also, don't say that they decided. That was that would be a common thought at the time.
Yeah,
that would be why there's a council being made, because a lot of people thought that, Chris. It wasn't like just it just popped in my head.
No. The idea is, though, in the Latin Church, what was added to the Nicene Creed didn't have the same. The literal translation into Greek made no sense, and so when they tried to institute it in the Greek churches, they were like, well, just say the Latin version. Like, no, we ain't doing that. And there was whole argument there with that.
Chris, I just want to point out that when you add something to something, people always will question the legitimacy of adding something.
Yes.
Well, the reason
why wasn't it included in the beginning? That's the question. They will always ask.
The reason it was added was, and this is always the case with these creeds, the reason that creeds get changed is to prevent heresy. So, like, at the time, there was a big
by saying it's no longer
on.
heresy.
No. So, like, the Arian heresy came back multiple times, and this time with a vengeance. And, like, I think there was that one. There was Nestorianism. I've done a lot of research on this stuff. There was a lot of heresies going on, and one of them was that, like, the Father and the Son were not equal in the Trinitarian formula. If you don't know what that is, it's like Father, Son, Holy Spirit deal.
Yeah.
And so they added to the creed what's called the Filioque, which is a Latin term that they added Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit is, I don't know, it was something along the lines, the Holy Spirit is through the Son and the Father, not just the Father. And that was what the Greek Orthodox Church had an issue with. Because it wasn't in the creed, not because they disagreed with the idea of it. They're like, you can't change the creed.
Yeah, I mean, the early Christians, this was like a very long time before they decided that Christ was even divine. They didn't even agree on that.
Yeah, there was a lot of disagreements on that whole situation.
Yeah, because it is kind of confusing if you weren't there. They didn't have the Bible to look at yet, so it is kind of
confusing. The Bible was
confusing.
around the 400s, I believe.
Yeah, well, yeah, again, so it's hundreds of years. That's longer than the entirety of our country that people didn't know.
Well, let me rephrase that. Like, there was the Greek Septuagint.
That's a long ass time, man. Is my point.
There was the Greek Septuagint. There was the Pentateuch, and there was a couple other things floating around, and that's why the books that were floating around that were, you know, promoting heresy and Gnosticism and all this other stuff were such a big deal.
Also, there's lots of people just saying things because most of it's still oral. Most people didn't read, so even if those things are floating around, how widely read were they? Probably not very.
No, not really. That's why I'm finding reading through the Against Heresies by St. Irenaeus so interesting. But that's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
Going back to the book, we've glossed over a very important topic, and that is the Varangian Guard.
That was literally the Guard of Constantinople.
Hey, man, the most
Isn't that in Star Trek?
The most legit guard ever, man.
What? Star Trek?
Hold on, man.
What are you talking about?
Keep talking.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out what you said, Will. No, like the
Star Trek.
The Varangian Guard is the most legit group ever. Just Constantinople's just like, hey, let's hire
the Vikings,
make them our mercenary group, and then they effectively helped Constantinople conquer a bunch of locations again.
Yeah,
and they became famously wealthy to the point that anyone who was in the Varangian Guard just became a rock star anywhere they went. And after they retired from that job, they would go basically everywhere, even all the way to Iceland, where they're talking in this about how some guys who were in it showed up to Iceland and they were like instantly just famous. Everyone was just all about them.
I think the Vikings, one of their major contributions, if I say greatest, some people will disagree with me, but one of their major contributions was the institution of Christianity to like a lot of the world. So,
I mean,
it's a Ferengi, not a Varangian.
Ferengi, okay.
That took way too long.
You had to look that up, didn't you?
Yeah.
I just want to point out though that the Vikings, based on the nations they conquered, because he doesn't really get into this topic too much, but the Viking heritage of it, rulers, right? When you look at rulers with Viking heritage, the vast majority of the Crusader kings were Vikings.
Well, yeah.
All of them, like, they all descended from Vikings.
Or mixed with them, one or the other.
Because the French eventually basically get dominated by Vikings.
Well, the French, Normandy. Wasn't Normandy a Viking settlement?
Yes. Okay, and the thing about Normandy is they revolutionized how a standing army operates. So out of all the French territories, I guess.
Wait, because didn't they have citizen soldiers, essentially?
Well, okay. He had a rotating soldier duty structure. So he never had his whole group of soldiers at once. He had everybody have to serve so many months at a time. And because of the rotation, he always had a standing army that was just you just shifted out the soldiers so the morale stayed high, and he could always muster an army for the field without worrying that, oh, if this campaign lasts too long, people are going to demand to go home for the harvest or whatever. Everyone else didn't do anything like that. So the Norman kings became ridiculously powerful in France. So like the French king was reliant on the Normans to fight most of his wars. They were the only group he could rely on for consistency.
So here's the next question then. With this book, what was your main takeaway? What is the main thing that you took away from this book? Or like something we could apply to our modern
Don't bribe
society?
anyone.
Don't pay the mafia for protection.
Don't pay.
What is the U.S. doing right now? Giving money to.
Yeah, don't pay for friendship. It doesn't work.
No.
But also
wait, it doesn't? You guys show up every week. No,
you
Wait a
don't pay
minute.
me.
Andrew's getting paid?
Yeah. You don't pay me shit. No, Chris, as ironic as it sounds, Vikings are model immigrants.
With the whole way that they assimilate and adapt.
They assimilate more perfect than any other group on the planet. You just had to show enough strength that they stopped raiding you. And
you just had to beat them back a few times.
Yeah.
You just had to show enough strength that they
just had to let like
you.
your peasants die.
Yeah, you like pin them down like a toddler, like let them get all angry, and then they wear out.
Okay. Seriously though, look at England. Even the Danes that lived there were sick of Vikings invading and raiding and all the conflict.
Yeah, that was the funny part, the Eric Bloodaxe thing where he takes over York, and they're like, "No, get out of here."
Yeah,
we like this place better than the Viking sounds.
No, like that's the thing where the Vikings were very much a group that was willing. If you showed them better ideas, that your ideas were stronger than theirs, they were the first group to just champion whatever the heck that was. Look at from Russia to Greenland, right? Every single location completely different. Every single one was completely different.
Yeah.
Because they adopted whatever the local custom was. Local governance, if it was better than their own. What is your weird face?
Yeah, what is happening?
We got a weird comment. I'll let you guys look at it. I'll put the link into the thing. It's on Rumble, so you can only imagine.
Oh, okay.
But they literally would take whatever the best thing was wherever they were.
So, anyways, I would agree with you, Andrew. I think one of the main takeaways I got was the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
No,
right?
that's not true.
But in the case of the Vikings, that's not true.
No, that's not true.
That is the opposite.
That's never true, Chris.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend for a short period of time until
the
they
enemy,
betray you.
No, the enemy of your enemy does not mean they're your friend ever.
I was mostly making a joke.
Yeah, so I think the takeaway for me is that we really need to start covering the Vikings in American history because, as you know, Andrew pointed out, European history is so influenced by them, and then English history is so influenced by them, and then it pretty much made America possible.
They probably if you look at, I forget where they're talking about it.
Maybe we should read the Magna Carta sometime.
It's not a bad document. If you look at it though, there's plenty of times in this where they put the Vikings are the first people to put limits on the power of their leadership, right? And you have to think when you review English history that the sheer percentage of the Vikings in their population probably caused the Magna Carta to be the unnecessary thing. So they 100% directly led to U.S. being what it is today. And before Adam Smith, there was a Swedish economist who actually came up with an idea very similar to the invisible hand theory. So,
if you want a good historical fiction about the Vikings, this is a really great book, by the way. Historical fiction with fiction.
Chris.
Oh wait, you can't see it. Never mind.
History.
It's It's called The Evening and the Morning by Ken Follett. It actually goes into like English settlements being raided by the Normans, which were the Vikings. There's some Viking.
The good thing is that they
leaders.
pass over at that, so you actually get to see any of it.
It's censored.
Yes.
It's censored.
It's not like, censored at all.
It just has this a blank page with the sentence "Things happened."
Yeah, exactly.
No, it opens up with a village being raided by Vikings and just the total destruction that occurred.
Wait,
and
how
many
do you know,
people
Chris?
died?
You read it?
I read this book, The Evening and the Morning by Ken Follett. I've read all of the King's Ridge books by
Ken Follett is also Chris's favorite author. It's C.S. Lewis.
Ken Follett is one of my favorite authors. I won't lie, but only when it comes to his historical fiction, and because I've tried.
Only when it talks about Christianity.
No, he's not like. No, he's got a pretty even hand on the good and the bad of the people that were involved in Christianity at the time. He's not like favoring one or the other, really.
I can't wait for you guys to get to the World Lit by Fire book.
Oh God! All right,
I'm so ready for that.
So what do we rate this book? That's the best question.
I mean, I freaking loved it. So like a 9 for me.
It's fascinating,
dude. We're out of 5.
No,
we're out of 5.
That's how far up I'm going. Like this is my favorite.
Oh my gosh! So Will's got a 5. Oh gosh!
I go like a 4.5. That way, it's like,
my goodness. I mean, from the pure historical perspective and like how much information it covers in such a short amount of reading, I was gonna give it a 5. I think this is like one of those books that's like, wow, you could just read this and you would learn a lot. And the narrative is well paced. There's
it's not boring. It doesn't really read like a history book.
I think a lot of people are very ignorant to this history. And just the perspective, when you count in the raiding, the slavery, the different, like how far they actually did go, I would definitely give it 4.5. There's some sections that are a little repetitive. When he jumps between raiders, explorers, traders, and homelands, he's kind of doubling back sometimes, so that's why I go with a 4.5 instead of a 5. Yeah. But it's a fantastic book.
Yeah. All right. I think anybody who's going to learn about English history or the UK or any of those things,
or just want something interesting to read. Like I went into this not really knowing what I was going to get, and I loved it. So
I mean, let's be honest, guys. It's Vikings.
Yeah.
It's Vikings. Like, how boring can Vikings be? The answer is not.
And shameless plug: if you guys want a really fun Viking movie that came out recently, The Northman is great.
It is pretty good. Yeah,
I haven't seen it. Can't comment.
You wouldn't like it. People died.
It depends on. Never mind. Long story short, I might consider watching it. Who knows? But all right. On that note, is there anything else we need to say? Because
go read it.
Yeah, definitely do. Oh, and subscribe to Printed and Pressed, the new channel. Yeah. I'm slowly migrating everything over there, and within the next 2 weeks, probably the Narnia Chronicles will still be on. The last one will be on Krillcast, but then everything will be moved over before the following book.
Like it.
All right. As always, I'm Chris.
And don't forget, the next book we're covering is what, Chris?
The Last Battle.
Oh, God, it sucks.
More like the last. No, I'm just kidding.
Just a little preview. What the hell happened to Tash? He just poofs. What was the point of that inclusion?
I haven't read it, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, man, don't spoil.
Sorry.
No spoilers.
I have read it. I read it like a decade ago. But all right. Well, on that note, read The Last Battle and join us for the next Krillcast discussion of Print and Pressed, whatever this is. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.